Hey, this is Jamie from Stonemaier Games. I'm joining you from my office, and there's a bed in my office, unlike usual, as I don't have COVID, but I did have a COVID exposure, so I'm kind of quarantined to my office for now, just in case I end up getting it. I am double boosted and vaccinated, and you're watching this in the future, so I will know in the future if I actually get it or not. I hope not. But I'm here today to talk about my favorite games, my favorite medium to light games with direct interaction. And this stemmed from some gaming sessions I've had recently with a good friend of mine and his 10-year-old son playing Small World of Warcraft, which is essentially Small World if you know that game. His son is a 10-year-old kid. He loves this game. And I think he loves it primarily for the direct interaction. Also, I think the theming, the map, I think the combination of the asymmetric abilities, I think he loves all that. But he specifically, definitely at this time, loves competitive games that aren't too heavy. I let him borrow Kemet, and it was too much, but Small World of Warcraft is really hitting the sweet spot for him. However, I think there are, I enjoy this game, but I think there are even better games that I can share with him. And so I've been thinking about some games in this category, medium to light games with direct interaction. Many of them kind of shaped around this kid, or not only this specific kid, but kids like him, or younger people like him, or even people like me who enjoy playing, on occasion, games with some direct player interaction. So some honorable mentions are Iwari, Rise of Tribes, Blood Rage, Cyclades, Bunny Kingdom, Risk, Mission Red Planet, Kingdom Builder, and El Grande. All of which could have potentially ended up on this list, but I think in the back of my head, I was still thinking at least partially specifically of this one person, which I know isn't a great concept for these top 10 lists, but it does help me shape whether or not a game should go on the list or not. A few games that were suggested by people that I haven't played yet that could have made it on the list are Champions of Midgard, Viral, World's Fair, Battlelore, and Evo. So let's get to the top 10 list. At number 10 is Small World or Small World of Warcraft itself. I would put it on the bottom half of this list. As much as I do enjoy the game, I enjoyed the aesthetic of it. I really like the combination of the races, as they call them in this game, the races and their attributes, along with the variability of the map. There are certain things that I think hold it back a little bit, and many of them come from my preconceived notions, I think, about games where you are adding things to a map and spreading out and attacking. Small World doesn't really do that. You are essentially pulling off all of your units, or as many units as you want each turn, and then plopping them down pretty much wherever you want. So there isn't this aspect, there isn't a feeling ever of like building up a defense or spreading out from a certain spot. Really, there's a little bit of that. But part of it, I find every time I play, I have to relearn certain things. That's a sign to me that there's something maybe a little bit lacking in the game, because it's not that complex of a game, and yet we are still relearning the same nuances every time we play. However, I know my friend's son really loves this game, and I do enjoy it quite a bit too. I mean, I own it. I have it right here. So Small World of Warcraft, number 10 on this list. I do have, I think, a separate video about Small World of Warcraft where I talk a little bit more about the comparisons between it and Small World, but they are very similar. I don't think there's any particular reason to buy one over the other. At number 9, I have Wonderland's War. This is one of the most recent plays of any of the games on this list. I played this game at Geekway to the West recently and had a ton of fun with it. It is a bag building game where there is also a lot of little skirmishes that happen for area control on the map. And that's when you're actually pulling stuff out of the bag. So it's essentially Quacks of Quedlinburg if you've played that, but with area control. The reason you're pulling things out of the bag is to win these little battles. It's a lot of fun. The only reason I put it a little bit lower on the list is because it's really pushing that boundary of medium to light. Whereas I think a good teacher could guide pretty much anyone through this game. For you to fully understand all the nuances, especially with the various things going on in your player mat, I think that takes a certain amount of, reading comprehension pretty much, and gaming comprehension to get it up to that level and make it feel like a medium light game instead of a medium game, or even a medium heavy game for some people, I think. So that's the only reason that game is lower on this list, is that it really is borderline medium light. But Wonderland's War is really a wonderful experience, very colorful, very beautiful. It reminds me aesthetically a lot of this game in terms of how it would attract a player, especially a younger player, to the table. That is Wonderland's War. At number 8 is a game that I think could be much higher up on this list for my friend's son, but it's a game that I haven't played very often in a long time, and that is King of Tokyo. I haven't played King of New York. I've only played the original King of Tokyo, but it is very much this colorful, direct interaction game where you are kind of upgrading your character a little bit, but choosing basically when to push your luck, when to throw your character through, because you're rolling these Yahtzee style dice, when to throw your character into the ring, because when they're in Tokyo, they are taking damage from all other players, but they're also damaging all other players. Versus when to just try to power up and get stronger or work towards the victory point endgame condition. There are two different endgame or winning conditions basically in the game. But I think a younger kid who loves competitive style play and loves the colorful feel of Small World of Warcraft would really, really enjoy King of Tokyo. And so I definitely need to share this with my friend's son at some point. That's King of Tokyo at number 8. And number 7 is the Stonemaier game that I think fits this list quite well, and that is My Little Scythe. I think My Little Scythe, because the aesthetic, plays a little young, maybe even a little younger than 10. And so I don't know if my friend's son has played this, but I think he feels like he's too old to play My Little Scythe now, even though it's very much a family weight game. But I really enjoy My Little Scythe. I published it, and I think it's a really fun game with just enough player interaction where you can fight other players. You can get in pie fights with other players, but there's this popularity element to the game where, or what do we call it, My Little Scythe? It's popularity inside. It's hearts, it's love. What are they called? They're called, I don't remember what they're called now, but they're hearts basically that you're getting. Friendship. It's called friendship in the game. You're getting friendship, and you're kind of mitigating. You're deciding at times, okay, do I want to lose some friendship right now because of this battle, or for other reasons, or do I keep going strong with friendship? Which I think is a nice theme to add to My Little Scythe. But it's very colorful. I think aesthetically, again, it's kind of similar to to World of Warcraft in how it invites you to the table in terms of the play. And the decisions you make are fairly simple. They're not complex decisions, but they're still interesting even for an experienced gamer. So I think that definitely falls well into this medium light category of direct interaction. That's My Little Scythe at number 7. At number 6, we have Brian Boru. This is another one that kind of pushes the edge here. And Brian Boru is an area control game using a trick-taking mechanism. So you are choosing a card from your hand and playing it, and that is determining whether or not you are going to win the little battle that happens every turn for area control on the board. Very, very simple, streamlined mechanism there, and very cool. I love this aspect of it. If you don't win the battle, or don't win the trick, it's essentially a battle, but if you don't win the trick, you get a little bonus from the bottom of the card that you played. If you win the battle, you get the bonus, which can sometimes be a negative thing. Usually it's positive, but sometimes it can be negative on the top half of the card. So no matter what, win or lose the trick, you are gaining something. I really, really like that about the game. The only reason I pulled it back a little bit is there are some other area control elements of the game. There's these invaders that you have to deal with. There's this church element, and there's another track at the bottom left that I forget the name of. And those elements, having played Brian Boru once, I could easily teach the area control trick-taking part. But those other areas are a little bit more nuanced into how they work. And that might be a little difficult to explain to someone who's, a teenager or a little bit younger, like my friend's son. So it's a little borderline there, but the core element of the game, I think, is really, really solid and interesting. And I think that the map, I think this idea of a map is really, really appealing to younger audiences and older like me. I love to see a map in a game, but I think it would be particularly appealing to them. So Brian Boru, I wanted to put on this list at number 6. At number 5, again, one of the slightly heavier games on this list, but I do love it, and I think my friend's son would love it, Clank. Clank arguably could be a medium game, but it really is not that complex, and you can essentially play open-handed, which I think really helps. Playing open-handed can turn a medium-weight game into a medium-light game because other players in the game can guide you. Clank is a deck-building game where you are using cards to move through a dungeon, to fight monsters, to gather loot and treasure, and then run back out of the dungeon. And it's using deck building to do all of that. There's not a lot of direct interaction in the game, but you do. There's all this amazing stuff on the board that you're trying to go grab, and you're trying to get it before the other players. And just the aesthetic of the board and that idea of running into a dungeon, seeing all this cool stuff, and deciding which of it that you want to go after, I think would be very appealing for my friend's son. And I don't think the deck building is complicated enough that that it would push him out of the game or turn this into a medium game that would maybe have him not playing it. I should give this kid more credit. He's a really smart kid. He could play any of these medium weight games, but I'm trying to make it a little bit easier for him to get into a game like this, and for his father to remember how to play the game. So Clank, the Clank is one that I'm definitely going to try to introduce to him, because I think it is a lot of fun and would be a lot of fun for him to play, and I love it. Another game thematically that I think fits well into this category, even though it's not an area control game at all, really, is Lords of Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep has, the theme, I think, is really beautifully integrated into the game in terms of the aesthetics. The core game itself is a little bit more of an economic game, but even with a theme just in the art and in the names and the world, I think the world of it would be very inviting, just as inviting as the world of Warcraft in this Small World of Warcraft. Lords of Waterdeep is a basic worker placement game where you're placing workers, gathering resources, and then using those resources, which are people, to send them on missions to complete quests and to get more victory points and more stuff. I love the quest system in the game. It's really satisfying to complete a quest and get not just points from it, but coins or more resources to go into your next mission. And all the while you are building out the board, because players are constructing buildings that create new action spaces for any player to use. It's just a wonderful game, and I think my friend's son would have a lot of fun with it in this medium light genre of games that really pull you in with a theme. As you can tell, that's a common theme of what I'm talking about today. Lords of Waterdeep, number 4. And number 3 is another game with a map that just looks really cool that I just want to dig into every time I play, and that is The King is Dead. The King is Dead is a very, very streamlined game. And I played the second edition. I don't know what the first edition is like, but the second edition, each player is given the exact same hand of cards, and you will play each of those cards once over the course of the game. Once you play a card, it is out of your hand forever. You are done playing it. And so the actions that you have a lot of actions to consider, but they are not complex actions, but you're deciding when to play those actions, really when is the right time to use this action in the game. It's so streamlined, so simple, but the decisions are so interesting in terms of the timing of it, the timing and location. When and where do you play these cards? And somehow it takes a game with so many interesting decisions, but streamlines it to the point that it is a medium light game at the heaviest. And it's one that I think my friend's son would really, really enjoy. So that is The King is Dead at number 3. And number 2 is Ethnos. I think this is I played Wonderland's War after Ethnos at Geekway to the West, but Ethnos is an older game that I had not played until Geekway to the West recently, and I really, really enjoyed it. Again, it uses a map, common theme here, and very simple Ticket to Ride style card play, where you are either gaining a card on your hand, or you are playing I'm going to forget the name here, a troop, a group of cards, basically, where you assign a leader to that group, and that leader defines a few aspects of the group, like defines which area of the board that you're putting a token on, and it defines the special ability that you're gaining. It's an asymmetric game. There's another reason it reminds me of Small World of Warcraft, because there's a lot of asymmetry in the setup of the game. There isn't player asymmetry, but the different cards that are in each game, the different factions, whatever they're called, are different every time you play the game. You create a different configuration. And so that each game can feel very different based on the different abilities available on those cards. I think that is really, really cool. Just the map, the simplicity of the play, the streamlined play turns out very, very fast. And it even has a fun little push your luck mechanism where you don't know exactly when each round will end. I think that's fun as well. Ethnos is one that I definitely want to introduce to my friend. The common thing about Ethnos that most people say is the art doesn't look good. It doesn't have great table presence. And I don't disagree with that. It didn't get in the way of gameplay for me, but for my friend's son, I think he does enjoy these more brightly, beautifully created worlds. And I hope someday that Ethnos will have a new edition that has more inviting art. And I think that will be the time that I choose to introduce this game to my friend's son. That is Ethnos at number 2. And number 1 is also a fairly new to me game, and this is a game called Rumble Nation. It really is a spectacular area control. Area control is one way to say it. There is area control in it, but it is kind of a dudes on a map game that is distilled down to these very, very simple core mechanisms that are really, really satisfying to play. The core idea in Rumble Nation is you are going to randomly set up this map with a bunch of different tokens numbered 2 to 12. And on your turn, you're going to roll 3 dice. 2 of those dice will, whatever 2 dice you choose, so you'll have agency here. You'll choose 2 dice to add together, and they will be the area on the board, numbers 2 through 12, that you will be putting cubes on. The other die determines how many cubes you put on that area. It's either 1, 2, or 3 cubes. And so you're choosing which areas to put your cubes on. And you'll do this throughout the game until all players have put all their cubes on the board. And you might think as I say that, okay, well, in general, I'm going to try to choose the higher dice to put more cubes down. That's what I thought the first time I played. However, this is a game where holding back can actually be to your advantage. You might put a cube here, a cube there, so that later in the game, other players have exhausted all their cubes, and you're just rolling dice every turn as you're putting one more cube out here and there, deciding exactly where the most strategic place to put them is. So I really like that. And then the fun even really begins in the second half of the game, where you just kind of execute this thing that happens, and you no longer have a choice in the game. You're kind of just watching to see how the battle plays out. And I think this is really satisfying, and this makes the game really, really accessible, because as long as one player fully understands how this part of the game works, and it isn't all that complicated, but as long as one player understands, all other players can kind of just sit back and watch the magic happen. Because at this phase of the game, starting with the lower numbers, you were going to decide who has area control. You're going to look at each one and decide who has area control. And if you have area control, if you win over area control, you get to add tokens to higher numbered adjacent territories that have at least one of your tokens. And so if I win the location number 2, that's labeled number 2, if I win that battle, I get to add, I hope I'm saying this correctly, it has been a few weeks since I played, but I believe it is 2 tokens. And I have 2 territories adjacent to that with higher numbers and at least 1 token in them. I would add 2 tokens, 2 cubes, to each of those areas to help me win area control in those areas. And so it has this cascading effect as you execute everything that you've set the game up for throughout the first half of the game. As these battles emerge, and you realize you build towards each battle from then on. It has this really neat sense of progression, even though it's completely automated at that point in the game. Rumble Nation is really, really cool. I don't own it. It's a little hard to get, but a friend owns it, and I can't wait to share it with my friend and his son, because I think we'll have a blast with it when we play it. That is Rumble Nation at number 1 for medium light games with direct interaction. And as you can tell, I kind of focused a little bit more on the theme and the art in this game too. Many of these games have maps and little battles that happen in the game. Yeah, those are my picks. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you can think of other medium to light games. For those of you who have kids, I don't actually have kids. So if you have kids and you've played games like this and you found that kids enjoy certain games and not others, let me know in the comments below. And also, I do want to emphasize, I know there are cooperative games that have the feel of some of the things that I've described. But based on my observations of my friend's son, I can just tell that he has this competitive spirit that I had when I was a kid while playing Risk. And if someone had told me, oh, you could play a cooperative version of Risk, I would not have been interested in that at the time, even though as an adult, I love cooperative games. But I think he's at the point in his life where he really enjoys this slightly competitive aspect of the game, and he's learning things like sportsmanship, which I think are important to learn at that age, and at my age too. And so that's why I'm kind of focusing this list on competitive games, and I hope you do too in the comments below. Thanks.